Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Office of the State Controller's Quick Vids training series. These videos are designed to help state agencies record and verify various accounting requirements within R-Stars based on guidance from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. I'll be walking you through the lease fact pattern for the example transactions we'll be posting into R-Stars. For our example lease, we have a term of 5 years or 60 monthly payments. There's a monthly payment of $20,000 and an interest rate of 4%. We entered this information into the T-Value software, and you can see the results in the amortization schedule on the right. It gave us a present value of minimum future lease payments of $1,086,370. The total annual lease payments are $60,000, which is split between principal and interest. Interest is the $10,084, and principal is the $49,915. Finally, we have a monthly amortization of $18,106. This is calculated by taking the total present value of minimum lease payments plus any costs associated with establishing the lease, if any. In our example, there are no additional costs to include. Therefore, we would simply use the $1.08 million that we found previously. We then take that total and divide it by the shorter of the lease term length or the useful life of the asset. For our example, the lease term length is shorter, and so we used 60 months. The annual amount for this year would be the $18,106 multiplied by the number of months remaining in the year, which is 4. This brings us to a total annual amortization of $72,424. In the next few videos, we will walk through the journal entries and how to enter them into R-Stars.
I will be entering a single transaction to reduce the lease liability in the government-wide reporting fund for any lease payments that were made during the fiscal year. Our lease information shows that monthly lease payments totaling $60,000 were recorded. I have already mapped out my entries with the document numbers, T-codes, and accounting elements I will need to use. This information is shown at the top of the screen. Make sure you are logged into R-Stars under the correct user class to make the entry. For this entry, to reduce the lease liability for the principal portion of lease payments made during the fiscal year, I will be using user class 27. Navigate to the 500 screen to enter the batch header. Enter your agency number. For this example, I am using agency 107. Enter the batch date or leave the field blank. I will be leaving the field blank to default to today's date. Enter the batch type. For this entry, I will be using batch type 4. Follow your agency procedures to assign a batch number. I will be using batch number 873 for this example. You may enter the expected batch count and batch amount, or you can leave these fields blank. I will be entering one transaction for a total of $49,915.14. The batch edit mode defaults to edit mode 2, and I will be leaving the header effective date blank to allow it to default to today's date. Press F10 to save the batch header and move to the transaction entry screen. Enter the effective date to determine which fiscal month the transaction should post. I will leave the effective date that has populated on this batch. Enter the document number and suffix. This is a JV document. I will be including the reference document for my lease payment, just to include a better audit trail. This VP is what was used to record that payment for monthly payments principal. Enter the T-code 459. Enter the PCA 04004, the object, the amount, The document amount, this will be the same in this case since there's only one transaction. The description, and in this case, I also need to enter the specific GL. To reduce the lease liability, I will be entering GL 1716. If everything looks appropriate with my entry, I may press F4 to pull in any lookup fields. In this case, it brought in the comp object and the associated fund. If all looks good on this screen, press F10 to save. From here, since I'm only entering one transaction, I can press F6 and see if my batch is in balance. The batch is in balance. My entered count matches my computed count. This completes my entry to reduce the lease liability in the government-wide reporting fund. The lease liability is only reduced by the principal portion. We don't need to include the interest that was paid. At this point, this batch is ready for review and release.
We have generated the DAFR 6610 and 6620 reports to verify the information was recorded properly. The examples used in these videos were created within the acceptance region. Since OBI does not include the acceptance region, we ordered the DAFR 6610 and 6620 reports. But under normal circumstances, the DAFR 6610 and 6620 reports within the OBI repository will show the same information. These reports are used by your SARS analyst in conjunction with agency disclosures to evaluate if balances and activities are recorded correctly for proper reporting in the DAFR. Therefore, it's important to review either these DAFR reports or OBI queries regularly and during the year-end closing process. Scrolling through the reports briefly, we can verify the information. In the previous portion of our training, we walked you through recording $49,915 of lease principal payments made. We see it here on the DAFR 6610 for the government-wide reporting fund and agency object 7000, which rolls up to comptroller object 7000, representing lease payment of equipment and machinery, which is appropriate. Turning to the DAFR 6620, we see the lease obligation balance in GL 1716 was reduced in Gap Fund 8500. The amortization schedule from the fact pattern portion of this training is now on the right side of the screen. This balance of $1,036,455 in R-stars agrees to the amortization schedule for the year-end balance. This transaction was recorded correctly.